All right. There it is. This is what we're doing today. Okay. I'm gonna get right into it. I'm gonna have Edinger Momentum on in a little bit, actually, at 12 to talk about the Ohio W-Riz and what's going on in the world of electoral politics in the United States of America. But before we get into that, of course, obviously, there's a lot to cover as far as what's going on the ground in Gaza. Okay? The bombing campaigns are continuing relentlessly. And, of course, what has America done? What has the United States of America done? You know, the leader of the free world, supposedly. The country that is quite literally responsible, like most responsible for the bloodshed, as the United Nations calls Gaza a graveyard of children. What has the United States done? Of course, the most expected, most maximalist racist position. The United States government turned around, looked at 10,000 people that have been killed by Israel in the last 30 days with our weapons, saw that 4,000 of them were kids. 73%, more than 73% are women, children, and the elderly of those who are killed. The United Nations is calling Gaza a graveyard of children. What did we do? What do we do in all of that? What do we do in all of that? Oh, that's right. We find extra money that we are sending with secrecy in a very unceremonious fashion. We found extra money for weapons that we are sending to Israel so they can, more expeditiously murder children. And also on top of that, we censured the only Palestinian congresswoman. That's great. That's great. It's fucking fantastic. Thank you so much, the United States of America, for always being the absolute worst possible country that we could be. Like, the absolute worst. We might as well just pass the fucking Zinke legislation, too. Fuck it. Just, bar all Palestinians from coming into America or some shit. Because we're disgusting freaks. We are disgusting, morally depraved freaks. And I don't even mean, John Fetterman's Goon Cave, okay? This is just a simple manifestation of that perverse behavior, okay? My man literally is just you don't understand, dog. You don't understand. I ride or die for this. What purpose does this serve? I saw a lot of people being like, Hassan, I can't believe in your 45-minute coverage over the protest, over the posters being ripped, and how you said that the purpose that these posters serve in America is to continue legitimizing Israel's bombing campaign, and not necessarily because these people are going to be found in America, obviously, or to be a reminder, okay, because our involvement in this conflict is very different than Israel's own involvement in the bombing campaign. They serve a very different purpose in Israel than they do here in the United States of America. Obviously, these people should return, except the Israeli government is not necessarily making the necessary steps to return these people, okay? And John Fetterman is just no, you don't understand. I'm doing this because I did have a head transplant. I did have a head transplant. You don't fucking understand. True enough, the dick riding is crazy. Anyway, so. Yeah, no, I have the playlist. Oh, I guess I don't. I have this playlist from yesterday. House votes to censure Representative Rashida Tlaib over controversial remarks about Israel and Palestine. It's fucking disgusting. Anyway, that's what I was going to talk about. Yes, that's what I was going to talk about, which is that 234 people voted to censure Representative Rashida Tlaib over her remarks and actions in response to the Israel-Hamas war. Several Democrats voted and Republicans in support of the measure. 22 Democrats in general voted in support of the measure alongside Republicans. Some voted present. Okay? Very cool stuff is happening in the United States of America. Just an incredible, incredible moment. Now, censures have happened in the history of the U.S. Congress. I believe one of the oldest censures, the second censuring process that ever occurred in the Congress was when a Whig Party member had brought forward a motion for the abolition of slavery. So just really continuing the historic precedent of like using censuring in the absolute worst positions possible, just like as a matter of historical record, just putting our names down to be like, we're the fucking worst, dog. We are literally the worst. Now, what censuring is, for those of you who don't know, is a formal statement of disapproval in the form of a resolution that is adopted by majority vote. This term censure is not found in the Constitution, and the word does not even have to appear in the resolution itself. But for those of you who do not know what that means, we can get into it a little bit further. It's basically for everyone to just be on the record of being a piece of shit, pretty much. Congress is not the only one that censures people. In October, Franklin Alderman Matt Brown asked for a vote to censure former alderman and then mayoral candidate Gabrielle Hansen at the next board meeting. Censuring is just basically a punishment. Viewed as a last resort, punishment of last resort. It admonishes someone for something that is perceived as a serious wrongdoing and informs the public of formal disapproval of the wrongdoing. Many organizations use censures on people, usually in leadership roles, but we mainly hear about lawmakers facing a censure. What does it mean, however? Well, censuring of lawmakers comes just one step below expulsion and is usually triggered only for the most grievous wrongdoings. The most grievous wrongdoings, like when in a valid censuring, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia was up for censure over her past statements in support of fringe conspiracy theories like Jewish space lasers are fucking responsible for the wildfires in California. Okay? Gozar was censured for the shit he pulled against AOC. It has happened, yes. U.S. politicians got censured for being against slavery in the 1800s. Yes, I mentioned that already. So, just real cool stuff overall. Wonderful, cool. Love that. Real great. It's basically just to be on just to put it on as a matter of record, just to be like, we are awful dog shit sons of bitches who absolutely suck. Yeah. Where were we? Let's get into the process. I'll talk about the history of it in a second.
Many Americans and led to public protests supporting one side or the other. Now, those emotions overflowed last night in the House of Representatives as it voted to censure the only member of Congress with Palestinian roots. Michigan Representative Rashida Tlaib has repeatedly denounced Israel's military response to the deadly attack by Hamas a month ago. Nicole Killian is on Capitol Hill with more on that part of the story. Nicole, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning to you, Gail. This censure is more of a symbolic move, but it comes at a time when this conflict is forcing many people and lawmakers to take sides.
I will not be silenced, and I will not let you distort my words.
Michigan Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib fought back tears as she was censured Tuesday night for her stance on the Israel-Hamas war.
I can't believe I have to say this, but Palestinian people are not disposable.
Like, they literally censured her for, one, saying correctly that October 7th is a direct consequence of Israel's maintenance of an apartheid state, which, of course, is incredibly violent in and of itself, and caused an incredibly violent retaliation. The inverse of that, of course, is to say, no, Palestinians are rabid, barbarian, brutal monsters, and that's the reason why October 7 happened, because they want to kill all the Jews, not just in Israel, but also all the Jews around the world. How dare you say that, like, Palestinians are human beings who don't deserve collective punishment for the actions of a militant group that is engaging in a violent emancipatory effort, okay? That's completely unacceptable. To cast any kind of motivation to the actions of those who we have declared as enemy combatants is completely unacceptable. Even if it is not a justification, which she would never give, okay? but simply an explanation to find a solution, an actual adequate solution to the problem, because everything that we've done thus far has been an abject failure. Everything that Israel has done thus far has been an abject failure. Clearly, if it worked, then October 7 would have never fucking happened. Mass surveillance, a blockade, and endless bombing campaigns in the Gaza Strip as the apartheid continued, and people were brutalized in the West Bank. If this was a successful mechanism to ensure permanent security for Israel, then it would have fucking secured permanent security for Israel. Okay?
We are human beings, just like anyone else.
Tlaib is the only Palestinian American in Congress and one of 2 Muslim women in the House.
Mr. President, the American people are not with you on this one.
She had increasingly come under fire since the October 7th attack and was accused of promoting false narratives and anti-Semitic rhetoric. In a recent social media post, she invoked the phrase "from the river to the sea," which critics say is a veiled reference to the eradication of Israel.
The river.
Yeah, secretly. Yeah, everyone is like secretly, but also very publicly saying this. And it's not just like a very cynical, manipulative way to basically reinforce the narrative that like Palestinian liberation can only happen if all Jewish people in Israel are genocided. That is a reframing of a narrative that is not historically accurate, okay? It's also pure projection. It's pure projection, especially considering that Likud's forming charter also specifically stated from the river to the sea, this entire land will belong to Israel. I believe even had some mentions of Jordan as well. But regardless, there's only one party that is genuinely working to destroy all matter, all semblance of Palestinian life and culture in this area, and the other party is usually just a victim to that, with some militancy in between, historically speaking. Okay?
Is the Jordan River, and the sea is the Mediterranean. This is a call for the complete destruction of Israel.
While Tlaib called it an aspirational call for freedom, it drew
like what? This is so frustrating because it happens with every slogan. Every slogan is never met with, oh, who are the people saying this slogan? Let's listen to what they have to say. And instead, every slogan is met with, what are the people on the other side saying about this slogan? Let's hear them out. And let's only take them seriously. It's fucking insane. Okay? A slogan is nothing. It's just a slogan. It is a call to action. Only liberals, which, by the way, unfortunately, every single liberal, every person in this country is a goddamn liberal, both on the Republican side and the Democratic side. That's the broadest majority of people. Okay? That's all they care about is the aesthetics of a slogan. That's it. Or what a slogan makes them feel. It's so selfish. It's so stupid. It's so ridiculous to have this back and forth over and over again, to be like, oh, optically speaking, this is not the best. Optically speaking, it's not the best. I hate it. I despise it. But yes, as I've said before, Black Lives Matter doesn't mean only black people matter and white people don't matter. No matter how hard, first liberals under the Barack Obama administration, white liberals, white moderates, and then the Trump administration kept saying that Black Lives Matter meant only Black Lives Matter and white lives don't matter. It's ridiculous. Everybody understands what BLM means. It's just a fucking slogan. The reason why I use it is because once Trump actually came out against Black Lives Matter, what happened? All of a sudden, liberals got on board with BLM. They co-opted it. They commodified it. That's a subject for a different day. Okay? But ultimately, that doesn't change what the actual meaning behind the words are and whether or not an emancipatory call for Palestinians an emancipatory call for Palestinians is just or not. Okay?
Condemnation from both sides of the aisle, with 22 Democrats joining to support the GOP-led resolution to punish Tlaib.
My criticism has always been of the Israeli government and Netanyahu's actions. It is important to separate people and government.
Tlaib did not have to stand in the well of the House, which sometimes occurs when a member is reprimanded. She becomes only the 26th member of Congress to ever be censured, which is one step short of expulsion, Tony.
Nicole, notable for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. Gasoline on fire. Jewish Democrats side with Republicans on the Tlaib
I can't believe I
censure.
have to say this, but Palestinian people are not disposable. The cry.
I want to also look at all of the other people who weren't censured for their sentiments, just to help you develop a better understanding of like what kind of language and what kind of rhetoric is considered permissible by the United States Congress, whether they are senators or members of the House of Representatives. It does not matter. Let me pull them up, actually. You know what? I'm going to try to pull them up as quickly as possible. Hold on. Number 1, Max Miller. GOP Congressman Max Miller said Gaza should be a parking lot. Let's pull that real quick.
Tlaib has the, I don't even want to call it the Palestinian flag because they're not a state, they're a territory that's about to probably get eviscerated and go away here shortly, as we're going to turn that into a parking lot. Rashida Tlaib.
That did not get a censure, noticeably absent. GOP Congressman Brian Mast said every Palestinian civilian is a Nazi and should be treated as such. And Brian Mast said this on the floor of the Senate, or on the floor of the Congress, of the House of Representatives. He said every single Palestinian is a Nazi. Let's take a look at that.
As a whole, I would encourage the other side to not so lightly throw around the idea of innocent Palestinian civilians, as is frequently said. I don't think we would so lightly throw around the term innocent Nazi civilians.
Comparing Palestinian children that at this point had died by the thousands to Nazis.
During World War II.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. In the immediate aftermath, or in the beginning of the violence that Palestinians were subjected to, as Defense Minister Yoav Gallant was calling them human animals and considering this to be a siege, and saying we're going to shut off their electricity and we're going to shut off their electricity and we're going to shut off their
absolutely
their food and power, which are all, of course, acts of collective punishment and war crimes. What was U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham saying? Oh, that's right. He was saying we are in a religious war. Let's take a look.
Absolutely appalling, disgusting to the Secretary General of the United Nations, who I consider a friend. You said today we had to understand this conflict in a greater context. My friend, Hamas doesn't want us to two-state solution. They want to kill the Jews just like the Nazis did. I am tired of appeasing Hamas, apologizing for them. This is not a land problem, a boundary problem. It's a problem of you cannot live in my world. My God determines that you die. Iran and Hamas believes that the Jewish people should die as a result of religious teachings. We're in a religious war here. I am with Israel. Do whatever the hell you have to do to defend yourself. Level the place.
Level the place. Interesting. Did not get a censure for that either. So just for people to understand, Nikki Haley said some things as well. What was Nikki Haley's statement? Let me see if I can find that really quickly. What was Nikki Haley's statement on Israel? Did senators talk like this post 9/11? Yes, of course. Of course they did. Of course they did. So Yeah, I already covered Max Miller. So just so you understand, Josh Gottheimer, a Democrat, in a closed-door meeting, literally said, all Muslims are responsible for October 7th. Like within earshot of Muslim congresspersons. They were talking about holding a vigil for all of the victims and even including Muslim clerics, like imams, in this multicultural, diverse vigil. To which Representative Josh Gottheimer openly replied with, while he was talking to his buddy in the back of the room in a closed-door meeting, they're all responsible. All Muslims are responsible. They feel guilty for October 7th. So that kind of sentiment, I love this. All Muslims are responsible, though. Thanks, man. That's a good take, brother. Thank you. There's another Hamas terrorist recording about using ambulances this time. Brother, that is ridiculous. Anyone that looks at those fucking interviews as anything but an attempt to humiliate leadership of Hamas, which is like the open express purpose of it, and anyone that looks at like the literal interviews under duress, which are not permissible in any court system around the fucking planet, is a fool and a ridiculous person, an unserious person. They do that all the time. I know it's a recording, you fucking idiot. It is literally an interrogation. I know. That is a fun way to get back to somehow blaming you for everything, though. Maybe. Also, you should be blaming the top of the hour ad break. Because at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free. You can avoid the ads altogether and no longer see them. Here's a 3-minute ad break now. I'll put this over here, the glossary. Translating hate. Stopping anti-Semitism understands starts with understanding it. Anyway, any chance you get Rashida Tlaib on the broadcast? Probably not. But, I mean, I would love to have her on the broadcast. Let's hear what Karine Jean-Pierre had to say in the joint press briefing with John Kirby, where I believe John Kirby also reiterated, NSC, reiterated their position that there are not really any real red lines when it comes to Israel. But that's besides the point. We'll get to that later. Let's hear what she had to say.
Continue to make that clear to them.
And then last night in a bipartisan vote, the House censured Congressman Rashida Tlaib. Does the president believe that was appropriate, that her comments justified that action?
So I'm not going to speak to the actions that Congress takes. We've been very clear, and any other resolutions that include a censure, we've been very clear, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, that is for certainly Congress to take action on, and that is their prerogative. We've been clear. You've heard from members of and.
What do you mean you'll miss me? What the fuck does that mean?
Whether it is the Admiral or whether it is John Feiner who spoke to this, that when it comes to the phrase that was used from river to the sea, it is divisive, it is hurtful.
Oh, wow. At least she didn't hit it's anti-Semitic, or maybe she's getting to it, you know?
To many find it hurtful. And also, many find it anti-Semitic. And so, obviously, we categorically...
Well, shit, dude. If many find it anti-Semitic, okay, never mind, dude. Well, people find Free Palestine to be anti-Semitic, too. So I guess we can't say that either. No, you can't say anything. You just... ridiculous. How dare you? How dare you speak for the emancipation of Palestinians when obviously offering any kind of semblance of real liberal democracy and self-assurance and autonomy to the Palestinians would spell trouble for Israel. It would doom them, and not just like doom Israeli civilians or Israeli citizens, by the way, doom the demographic destiny of Israel, the demographic aspirations that Israel has to maintain its apartheid regime, or rather an ethno-state. You know? It's great. The difference in this circumstance is that when people go, what about white lives against Black Lives Matter? Everybody understands that is a laughable notion, because white identitarianism is broadly because we are a majority white nation and white people have been in power in perpetuity. It's a white supremacist country in general. Everybody understands that it's a laughable concept. But when you say this is anti-Semitic, anti-Semitism is real. Okay, it's a real problem. So liberals' brains break a little bit where they cannot comprehend that this could be cynically deployed against any and every kind of pro-Palestinian movement or pro-Palestinian sentiment. Problem is, anti-Semitism is a real issue. It's real. In my opinion, it's fucking gross to turn around and weaponize a real issue that Jewish people face universally, to cynically use it in defense of a ethno-state. It is anti-Semitic to assume that all Jews unconditionally and universally love Israel, as we read in the Hasbara propaganda, talking point manual that we were reading yesterday. True. It's so gross, dude. Israel is already bombing Gaza with impunity. It's just decadence for them to be like, we don't even want you guys to have a slogan as you toothlessly protest us. Yes, it is ridiculous that Palestinians in Gaza have nothing. They're being killed. They just have to stand in the way and get fucking destroyed by Israel, okay? As like every day there's another like Israeli brigade, like an IDF brigade that's like, hell yeah, we captured our ancient beaches. Or there's like another defense minister or like some fucking Knesset member who's like, I cannot wait to settle the entirety of North Gaza. I can't wait to fucking turn it into a parking lot. All this shit. We have to sit there and act like all of this is actually a national security concern, like a real national security concern. This time around, I promise, bro. I promise. This time around, it's real. We're actually gonna deal with Hamas. We're gonna end it, bro. We're gonna fucking bomb Hamas out of existence. This time it's gonna work. Here, this is what I'm talking about, by the way. Meanwhile, while all that's happening, you can't even say free Palestine. You can't say any iteration of that. Even that is not permissible. Okay? Don't say anything. God forbid. I mean, don't even talk about the bombing campaign being unjustifiable. Don't talk about a ceasefire. That's anti-Semitic. Don't say free Palestine. That's anti-Semitic. Don't say anything. Nothing is allowed. Yeah, here is Yishai Fleischer. This tweet was deleted, but I don't think for a second that this isn't what Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, and their ilk believe. They'll discuss the plans to settle Gaza behind closed doors. Netanyahu is completely dependent on them. Anyway, really cool stuff. Oh, God, I fucking despise this. Anyway, we're going to move away from this for a brief moment as we talk about elections and election results in the United States of America. As I have for a limited window, I have Edinger Mentum here. I'm going to call him right now, and we'll be talking to him about this. Hello?
Oh, hey. Oh, yeah, I'm on. Sorry, I just need to unmute it. I had the stream going on in the background. Yeah, what, so,
What's
yeah. Well, I have all the election results pulled up here.
You
But
want to share your screen or something? Or I can just, like...
Just go to the New York Times page. But if, like, since you were just talking about Israel, I think we could go to, like, the article, like, I wrote about, which one was it? Oh, yeah, George Bush first. I think that would be kind of like a, like, more, like, smooth thing. I think you had that, like, pulled up in the corner the other day. But that's
we can start out with that. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me pull up the elections page. Where the fuck is it? Live election results, top races to watch from last night. We'll be talking about that. But before we do that, I guess we should talk about America's responsibility and America's involvement. That's a better way to segue that into your piece, I think. What do I mean by this? Well, a lot of people claim that the United States of America is simply a small bean in this small bean conflict. Israel's a small bean state, obviously. Look how tiny they are. They're just defending themselves by preemptively fucking launching the most unimaginable amount of death and destruction to civilian populations over and over again throughout its history. But also on top of that, America is simply just, there's a lot of reporting that's being done right now showing that like the United States is at odds with the war crimes that Israel is committing with our weapons, right? With our missiles. They keep saying like, oh well, I know John Kirby and even Blinken at a certain point said there's not allowed to sorry, Kaya just got up. I don't know how. I thought I actually had her locked into her bed. Okay. Sorry. I lost my train of thought. Okay. Israel is there's no red lines for Israel. There's nothing we can do. We can't stop them from doing anything. They're just going to keep doing what they want to do while also simultaneously trying to wash their hands clean of the atrocities a little bit. You had the lieutenant general who said everything that Israel does on the ground in Gaza is completely out of our hands. We wash our hands of this. You had Blinken warn, or at least like throw out feelers in the media that the United States is telling Israel to use smaller bombs. Even the concept of a humanitarian pause rather than a fucking full-blown ceasefire is not just a semantics difference. It's a way to try to get everyone's attention away from Israel's atrocities and war crimes and acts of collective punishment that is mercilessly happening in Gaza right now, so that things can cool down a little bit as they can continue maintaining their apartheid structure. However, there's a different time from a while back, as you wrote about on your Substack, the president who stood up to Israel and won, George W. Bush, AIPAC, and the proven folly of unconditional aid. So, yeah.
This was like a really fascinating story to research and write about, because you never see this happening now. But basically, in 1991, well, in 1989, when Bush became elected, his whole vision was he was going to create the new world order. He was going to turn the entire world woke with a completely U.S. dominant world, and part of that scheme involved for U.S. dominance included being dominant over Israel. So Bush, uniquely out of I think every president we've had in the last 50 years, actually turned the screws on Israel, and it wasn't very difficult. He just he conditioned some aid that was coming in there on stuff that he wanted them to do. Yes, this is George Bush, like H.W. Bush, the guy who killed JFK. Yeah, senior, the guy who killed JFK, the guy who who did Iran-Contra, killed a bunch of nuns in Central America, like Desert Storm. That guy, and he was the guy who stood up to Israel in this huge way that nobody really has before, and it had massive consequences. Israel not only listened to him, but their politics there completely changed overnight, where they suddenly realized, oh shit, we have to we can't do whatever we want. We have to elect guys who are not going to be fucking up our relationship with the U.S. And we have not done that ever since, and this kind of goes over what he did and why we haven't done it ever since then, and the consequences of us not doing that since then. So, I think you can play the clip that I have linked there. It's pretty fun. It shows what the environment was like.
So before we even get to that, one thing that we should be talking about here is you said aid. The nature of this aid, in my opinion, is pretty significant. So what this aid was, if I'm not mistaken, is the $10 billion of loans, right?
Yeah.
That Israel was slated to get specifically for the purpose of building settlements.
No, it was for housing for refugees who were immigrating from the Soviet Union. What Bush was saying was, guys can have this money to pay for this, because Israel needed this money. $10 billion was a seventh of their entire GDP. And they just couldn't. Their economy was pretty weak at the time. They could not absorb these people without aid. And what Bush said first, it was we'll give you this money, but you can't spend the money on settlements in the West Bank. When you give these people their houses, it has to be in Israel proper. And then he and his Secretary of State James Baker, who is a total killer, said you have to stop settlements. You have to freeze them entirely if you want the money, and you have to go to this peace conference and meet with Palestinians for the first time ever. And Israel had to do what they said because they needed the money. They had nowhere else to go. And so Bush just stood up for himself. He beat AIPAC and he kind of humiliated them, changed their politics. It's basically why their government fell apart. It got Yitzhak Rabin elected. It led to the Oslo Accords. And then Bill Clinton beats him, and then he totally follows the AIPAC line. There's these infamous quotes where AIPAC is talking about like how they have influence. They're like they have so much influence over Clinton. They know all of his friends. They're selecting his administration, and he really like right. Yeah, this is a really fun bit. Oh,
yeah, no, here it is. I found it.
Yeah.
Throw the bums out.
Here, we'll show this.
Yeah.
I have shown this before. On the
That's a loose translation of the Hebrew posters in this Jerusalem rally, but the bums these Jewish settlers refer to are not Israeli politicians, but President Bush and James Baker. Settlers are conservative by most political standards, but if they could vote in the American elections,
Yeah, they were so pissed
Bill
at James
Clinton
Baker.
would carry the
They
West
hated
Bank
him.
in a landslide.
They said he would carry the West Bank in a landslide. Well, good thing there's like, at least in 2015, there was like 60,000 votes in the West Bank. If you think about it, that could like literally legally vote. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
them are just
Americans
from
there
the
now.
US. Yeah, all of their like the
And Palestine-
Kane, who the insane lunatic who wanted to like enslave all the Arabs. He was from Brooklyn. Baruch Goldstein, who killed all these
Yeah.
people in a mosque, also from Brooklyn. That's not to say that like Israeli fascism is an imported like thing and that they're all like small beans there or whatever. But like there is like a lot of these people aren't even really actually like from the country. They're LARPers.
Yeah. I believe Noah called it like the zealotry of a convert.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, some of the most rabid, absolutely psychopathic monsters that were too extreme at the time for even Israeli politics, who have now been able to like actually create a solid constituency and have taken advantage of like Netanyahu's precarious, horrible position to genuinely get their points across. All of those guys are a lot of those guys are American backed.
Yeah. Are they're Arab descendant. A lot of those guys have parents who were from like Iraq named Abdullah, and they're like it's like it's kind of funny because like everybody says, oh, it's all these like it is true that like white Europeans are a lot of the Israelis, but those are the relatively more progressive ones. The brown Israelis are actually the ones who are really crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense when you think about it because like the entire point is like, well, one, there was a lot of like integration that I think completely disrupted the psyche of a lot of the Arab Jews. So that's number one. Because there was
they were so racist to them. They said they couldn't understand democracy.
Yeah. Like teaching them how to eat, like assuming that they only eat with their hands, things of that nature, like even small things like that, all the way to what you're describing. So that integration was like, that integration paired up with like a constant need to like prove your loyalty that you were, especially because like Zionism is, or maybe not in the beginning, but like Zionism became an anti-Arab project. Like it hinges on being anti-Arab. That's precisely the reason why in Israel, the way that it is described in its own demographic data is that you're either Jew or you're Arab, and all of the Jewish Israeli citizens who are of Arab descent are considered Jewish. All of the Palestinians who are Muslim and Christian are considered Arab. So
yeah. So it's when people say it's a religious conflict, it's completely ridiculous. There are Jewish Palestinians who get treated terribly. They were like, and I'm saying this as a Jewish person myself, so nobody can cancel me.
Yeah. Yeah, someone in the chat was saying, I don't like the way this guy's talking about the situation.
No, they're my people. I can say whatever I want.
Yeah. Well, you'll get hit with the at this point, you'll get hit with the self-hating Jew title quickly.
Nobody hates Jews more than Zionists. But that's another story.
Yeah. All right. So let's finish this because on the other side, hold on, let me watch
And
this video.
Palestinian leaders, supporters of that radical national liberation movement called the PLO, confess that these days their hearts are true blue Republican.
Mr. Bush knows the area, knows the parties, and probably will do more to get this conflict resolved quicker than Mr. Clinton or Perot.
Oh yeah, he knows the Palestinians real well. That's what, when you're CIA, I mean, you kind of have to, I think.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, like, in the article, like, basically, Reagan was obviously very supportive of Israel, like, during his 8 years in office. They were actually, like, Sims for Netanyahu a little bit. Reagan made all of his national security advisors read some book that Netanyahu wrote. This was when he was, like, a not very well-known guy. But when Bush comes in, he's like, we're going to solve peace in the Middle East. We're going to get oil forever. We're going to, create the New World Order. And they realize immediately, like, okay, so we have to stop the instability in the Middle East. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, there was a Wojciech Arafat. Somebody mentioned that. But Bush and Baker realized pretty quickly the problem here is that Israel is, like, refusing to talk with the Arabs. They're expanding settlements constantly. They're antagonizing people. They don't have any interest in peace. Like, so at the bare minimum, they have to stop the settlements here. And, like, if you scroll down a little bit, there's, like, a funny, like, kind of story where they get, like, this mixed up when they're first meeting with the prime minister there, Yitzhak Shamir, who actually was a member of a terrorist organization in the 1940s who tried to collaborate with the Nazis. He was the prime minister by then. Yeah, Lehi.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the same organization that, like, old-ass guy that the IDF put out there.
The oldest 95-year-old reservist that, like, somehow is just standing by, standing with the power of pure evil.
He got milkshaked up.
Lehi, I don't know how you say it. I always fuck it up. Or Stern Gang.
Yeah, you guys need to read that. Like, Abraham Stern, like, Yehi, those people are fucking crazy. It's so funny. And that guy, like, the old reservist they like interviewed him in a car, and he was like, kill all Arabs. If you have an Arab neighbor, shoot him. The prophecies have foretold this. So they don't bring that guy out anymore. But basically, so what happens here is that Bush and Baker meet Shamir in the White House, and they're like, bro, you got to stop the settlements. This shit is making stuff really hard. And Shamir said, that shouldn't be a problem. And they thought, oh, he just gave up. We won. But Shamir was saying that they shouldn't have a problem with the shit that he's doing. He's saying that, like, the U.S. shouldn't even question him, which is insane for you to do as basically a client state. And then he announces more settlements, and Bush gets pissed the fuck off, and he never forgives him. He's like, I'm going to get this guy, like, gone.
Yeah. It's also ridiculous because you're getting $10 billion.
Yeah.
To prop up your economy, because, like, you have nothing without that.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the Soviet Union hadn't fallen at that point, so they didn't need that much money now. But they still asked for $4 billion in aid. Like, it's not like they didn't need a lot of stuff. So Bush is pissed. He sends Baker to AIPAC, and he's like, "You guys need to fucking calm down. There's no greater Israel. That's not happening. You have to stop settlements. You have to reach out to the Palestinians." This is James Baker. This is, like, the guy who stole the election in 2000. And so Netanyahu, who's the assistant foreign minister at this point, he gets pissed off. He starts crying, and he's like, "Why the U.S. is listening to lies? They're so stupid. We hate them." And Baker bans Netanyahu from the State Department. And then he nearly gets banned from the White House because they all hate him. They think Netanyahu's this annoying asshole who just is entitled to thinks that he's entitled to whatever the U.S. does. Robert Gates is another guy who's like the CIA director. He was Secretary of Defense under Bush. Like, these are not, like, left-wing guys. These are guys who are just being realists.
Yeah.
And they're, like, just trying to do what's in, like, what they see as the interest of capital in the United States. And they're like, these people are fucking everything up. They need to calm down. Like, get real.
Yeah, no, it was since the 90s and onwards, especially now, Israel's, like, endless blood and soil politics against Palestinians is constituting, like, a genuine national security concern. Because even the Abraham Accords, when you think about it, the pivotal achievement of the Trump administration, led by the brilliant Jared Kushner, the best boy, this completely writes off Palestinians. But while our other client states in the region will be compliant and have already been engaging with Israel behind closed doors, maybe not, like, openly and normalize relations on paper, the population is looking at Israel's treatment of Palestinians and openly recognizing it for what it is. So the arrogance of the maintenance of that apartheid regime and the continued violence is genuinely constituting, in my opinion, a national security threat, even from the perspective of like right-wing politics, even from the perspective of like
from the perspective of Israel, like the
yeah.
Shin Bet head said that like he said this summer that the settlements and like the violence there was screwing up their military because they had to have their entire army in the West Bank to protect these lunatic settlers. And this is the head of their FBI basically, and the right wingers there called him woke. That was what they said.
Yeah.
They said the deep state has infiltrated Shin Bet, and so we don't have to listen to him. And then this happens, and they're like, "Oh my God, how could this have happened? They must. This is a totally unexpected thing. We need $14 billion because we don't have enough like equipment." It's so like just, it's farcical. These people cannot govern.
Yeah, there's like they keep melting the Merkava tanks that we put zero infantry around with like bathtub rockets that they made with like used parts inside of Gaza.
They're doing Halo shit. They got Master Chief in the Al-Qassam brigade.
Yeah. So is there anything else you want to cover on that? Because like this in my opinion is like showcasing yet another. It's yet another moment in time where it's like a snapshot of like America's obvious level of control and influence over Israel, even though dumbass Nazis always try to be like, "Oh, Israel controls America." It's like, no, you fucking idiot. No, not even remotely. Like this is just
we can stand up to them. Biden could stand up there and do exactly what Bush did, and things would change in an instant.
Yeah,
it would change instantly. So basically, what happens here is that Bush doing this, he actually gets a lot of criticism. So what happens is that he tries to condition the $10 billion in aid on settlements. And what AIPAC tries to do, they're like, we don't like Bush, fuck Bush, we don't even need to like listen to him. We're just going to go to Congress and we're going to pass it, and he's going to have to listen to us. They literally said like it would go through Congress like a hot knife through butter. And they have their guys in the press saying Bush is anti-Semitic, he hates Israel, he cares more about the settlements than the Arab countries. And Bush is like, fuck this, and he schedules this impromptu press conference where he totally like dismantles these guys. He accuses AIPAC of like trying to interfere with U.S. national security. He compares them to people who opposed the Gulf War. He says that like he cares more about peace than Israel does. His Secretary of State at this point gets incorrectly quoted as saying "fuck the Jews, they don't vote for us." He actually said "fuck AIPAC." So he totally just like
incorrectly quoted.
Yeah.
Wait, by the way, I don't know if you got to this part of the history, but like they did this literally to the Clintons as well.
Yeah.
And Bill Clinton was like much more favorable to the Israeli position.
Yeah,
than
he never did
Bush
anything
was.
like this.
Yes, and even then they said it about Hillary Clinton, I think.
Yeah, because they just like they don't want any like their own phrase here is zero daylight. There can't be any difference between U.S. policy and Israeli policy, which is insane. No other country even thinks of asking for that. But like Bush does like an incredibly good job here. He calls himself a lonely little guy. He says they have 1,000 lobbyists trying to take over Congress. And 86% of Americans end up agreeing with Bush. So AIPAC has to give up. Yitzhak Shamir like has to like go to the peace conference, and his like Shamir's government collapses over this. And Israel elects Yitzhak Rabin, who is not a peacenik. He was a lunatic general. He was like had a terrible reputation of war crimes, but he wasn't attached to the settlements like Shamir was. So so Bush and Shamir are Bush and Rabin are like
he's known as the bone crusher. That's important. I always bring that up. Like in the first Intifada, like his reaction was to deliberately get the police and the military to break the bones of like children as young as 5 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
Because
this
like,
is literally the most peaceful Israeli. Like not even exaggerating. Actually, the most peaceful Israeli.
Yeah, literally. Well, yeah, so peaceful they fucking they murked him.
Yeah, they did. Netanyahu got him killed. But basic like so Rabin and Bush are like, we're gonna solve this shit. We don't care about the settlements. We're gonna like create a two-state solution. But Bush flops. There's a recession. He gets owned in the election. He only gets like 30% of the vote. He gets destroyed. And then Clinton comes in and he's like, we love Israel now. And then the peace process collapses.
For the record, Clinton also hated, as far as I understand, I can't find this exact quote. I was looking for it for you specifically.
He hated Netanyahu.
He also hated Netanyahu. Members of his cabinet had literally said Benjamin Netanyahu is a liar, and everything that comes out of his mouth is a lie. He is a overall like really awful person to be around. He's very arrogant and very smug. I think something along those lines.
He also, after he met him for the first time, he like said like in his aspiration to his aides, "Who's the fucking superpower here?" Because Netanyahu was just so arrogant. But Netanyahu never gets elected in 1995, 1996. If Clinton shows any backbone, somebody like Netanyahu never wins if he thinks that if Israelis think that the U.S. is ever going to stand up to them. It's because of the posture here of the U.S. where we let them get away with anything and everything that they've been able to go so far to the right, because their voters logically think, well, what's the point of voting for people who want peace if the U.S. is going to let us get whatever we want? Yeah. So from that perspective, voting for Netanyahu makes a lot of sense, because he's just operating in the circumstances that we give them.
Yep.
Yeah, and like they went hard against Bush here. They said he was eroding the taboo against overt anti-Semitism. This is over loans. This was over him saying, we'll give you $10 billion in loans if you just change a policy. And they called that anti-Semitic. So you shouldn't listen to any of the shit these guys give you. They'll do it to George Herbert Walker Bush. They'll do it to anyone over anything. It's completely dishonest.
Yeah. No, it's a cynical deployment of anti-Semitism in an effort to justify like increasingly more violent Israeli state policy. Always. Yeah, they did it to every single person. I guess like they haven't done it to Joe Biden, who is, I would say Joe Biden is personally invested in the Zionist project more than like any of these other guys ever were. Like I think back in the day, all the way from Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, like maybe even fucking Bill Clinton personally. I think that's like the change that happened. But at the time, Joe Biden was already like a hardliner Zionist, right? Even back then, when these guys were in power, Joe Biden was openly saying things like, if we did not have a Jewish state in Israel, like in that region, we would have built one ourselves.
Yeah, he's a crazy simp.
Yeah, he's a big time simp. And what else was I gonna say? There's another thing I wanted to bring up. I mean, like Reagan was mostly just motivated by whoever the fuck was in his cabinet. Like in a lot of these instances, like at early stages,
he had Alzheimer's.
Yeah, like in the earlier stages, like these guys don't have like a genuine personal investment. Like even with Carter, he is like, yeah, sure, he's like Christian, so there's like a little bit of that. But overall, I think it's like mostly people that are making decisions for him, and he's just kind of going along with it. And in the beginning, like he has no fucking concept of what's going on in Israel at all. So,
this is something I'm planning on writing about. But Biden's team has been so like just lazy with foreign policies, not even like a specific ideology. They've just kept up with so many Trump policies.
Yeah.
Like that's, I think one of his biggest legacies will be how he set Trump's legacy in stone, where he took these batshit ideas from Trump and he made them basically consensus bipartisan policy. It's the case with the Iran deal. It's the case with the Abraham Accords. They just didn't have any will to move on from what he did.
That's one aspect that I will push back on. I think, and this is, I have no like real reason to believe this beyond the fact that the prisoner swap happened with the $6 billion with Korea.
Yeah.
Like the South Korean $6 billion that was supposed to go to Iran being unfrozen. I do think the only exception for Biden foreign policy, I agree with you, even the Afghan pullout was a continuation of Trump's policies. Obviously, like the way that we're dealing with Israel and continuing along with the Abraham Accords, that is a continuation. But I do think that quietly and also, before October 7th, publicly, the Brandon administration was, in my opinion, trying to start the normalization process with Iran.
Yeah, well, they have a good guy in charge of that. Robert Malley is actually pretty like decent, especially in terms of U.S. foreign policy.
Yeah.
But they've kind of like left him out to dry. They haven't really supported him as much as they could have.
Yeah, but I think that like we're now operating with our understanding of like give Israel all the money and all the weapons to kill as many Palestinians as possible.
Yeah,
Post
the
October
bear
7th.
hug strategy.
But before then, it did seem to me like they were trying to desperately counter China's attempts at building a presence in the region. Very successful attempts, mind you, because like right now there's videos coming out every day from fucking like Houthi guys in Yemen stepping on the Israeli and American flag and like and making like sing-along videos about how they're sending fucking drones into Israel, right?
Yeah, they
And
said they sent troops into Gaza. Like, I don't know how the hell they'd even do that.
Yeah. They said they wanted to walk through Saudi Arabia and march into Israel, but Saudi Arabia did not allow them. And that they welcome the international community to complain and criticize them, but like, they will forcibly instill democracy there. Now, the reason why I mention that is because Yemen, not until not long ago, was under full-blown blockade. Like, it was a man-made genocide that the Saudi regime, with America's backing, utilizing literally Al-Qaeda operatives, as a matter of fact, armed with U.S. weapons in Yemen, were bombing the shit out of densely populated areas in Yemen, and also creating genocidal conditions. How the fuck did they all of a sudden move from withstanding a genocide to being able to send rockets into fucking space that end up, getting intercepted by the Israeli Aero defense? How did that happen? It happened because China started the normalization process between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So that is the reason why I think, and ended the blockade as well. So that is part of the reason why I believe America was quietly trying to also get involved with Iran, because they see the writing on the wall that like they do not want to concede. They do not want to concede or leave this entire region to China to deal with.
Yeah, they had that huge deal between the Saudis and the Iranians earlier. I think earlier this year. Yeah. So they can't be as harsh as they want to, which is why Israel has put them in such a hard situation, which is why it's so bizarre that they are just defending them to the hilt. Like, these guys are fucking everything up for you. Just, you don't have to be like a raging like leftist like George fucking Bush, the CIA George Bush, who killed John F. Kennedy in 1963 personally. He was the guy who did this. You don't, like I said this at the end, he's not a good person, did none of this out of the goodness of his heart, but he did this because it's just like the basics, it's the basic truth. Like, if you want to have stability in the region and influence in the region, you have to bring Israel to heel. And like, there's just a fear of doing that. But like, this shows that like you have nothing to be afraid of. You hold all the cards here. You just have to be somebody who just fears nobody, like George Bush did, and you can get a lot of results. Biden does not have that CIA swag, sadly.
The problem is that this is like dual arrogance, right? On the one hand, we've talked about the arrogance of like of the Israeli government and the maintenance of the apartheid, thinking that this will not be costly, right? As far as security goes, you wrote about that as well. Netanyahu was the security candidate. He was the security candidate, and all of that completely perished. On October 7th.
He's done. There's a lot of other articles I've written about that that I feel pretty good about. I compare this, probably the best comparison I think is the Tet Offensive, because like Lyndon Johnson, Netanyahu was banking on the idea that he could manage this conflict forever and get everything that he wanted at once, like how Lyndon Johnson thought that he could have a limited war in Vietnam and keep South Vietnam standing. And that concept, that's what the Israelis called it, the concept, that has shattered. And he's, well, like what you said, like about how he's dependent on the far right ministers, these people, and that's another thing that I wrote, you kind of have to have all this together at once. These people who are openly genocidal, worship terrorists who killed like 30 people in a mosque, worship the terror attack, like want to create a theocracy, like take all the land from the Sinai from the Nile to the Euphrates. He's totally dependent on these people because everybody else wants to put him in prison.
Yeah, and I don't understand how there's the domestic arrogance, right, for Israel, but I don't understand how like more I guess like realpolitik focused American foreign policy advisors don't recognize that, like, that also looks bad for them, because you know, if we're moving towards multipolarity, it is ridiculous that to just like let Israel loose and do whatever the fuck they want, and not realize that the rest of the world, specifically the global South, that is way more interested in cutting deals with China on better loan conditions that China's giving them, like that they don't see that the America's power is waning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Bush recognized it because he didn't give a fuck, and then he lost re-election.
It's just very well. Bush didn't lose re-election for that reason, though. Obviously,
Yeah, he did it. I made that point. That was like a myth that the AIPAC created. The two states where the most Jews were at the time were New York, which was a blue state, and Florida, which Bush won. So it's like he did lose a lot of the Jewish vote, but it wasn't impactful. He lost for other reasons.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to your bread and butter. You have long been credited for correctly calling the transphobia narrative and the transphobia line not being successful. You know, I myself have also called it, but like, you know, it's fine. Whatever. Like, I'll give you the credit. It's cool.
It's chill.
But and we're seeing that again. I mean, we have the Christopher Rufos of the world still pushing as desperately as possible.
No win, Chris. No rings, Chris.
Yeah,
he's never won. He has 0
not
dubs.
even a Mickey Mouse ring, really.
No,
like,
no, you
just
can't
so
even say
stupid.
That. Yeah.
And
Lee Rufo.
Yeah, I mean, thinking of like how far the Republican Party has fallen, you look at James Baker, and then you look at like the likes of Christopher Rufo and Matt Walsh running around like headless chickens, still pushing in the immediate aftermath of like a very successful off-season election outcome that showed time and time again that like Republicans are a victim of their own success and that their policies are insanely unpopular. And they're
making it worse for themselves. Abortion is already like enough of an issue. You don't need to compound it by making your main message besides that, like just graphically describing top surgery. It's not like it's moronic.
Dude, that's why I loved Mike Pence, who would just like go up on stage and go against Nikki Haley, who was like the only competent person there, even though on Israel she's like a John Fetterhead a little bit. But
she's on that Ben Shapiro grind with John.
Yeah, exactly. But on like abortion, she's like, hey, this is not good. Like, we should stop this. You know, this is we need to stop talking about abortion the way that we're doing. And Mike Pence would be like, oh, there's an unrelated question about immigration. I'm going to somehow even tie it back to a federal ban on abortion that I think is a necessity, which was psychotic.
Like the guys who runs the Babylon Bee had like a mental breakdown earlier today over it, where he said like he was posting biblical like apocalyptic narrative shit over that. They're like, these guys are actually like true believers. They're psychos. But anyway, you can see here, there's a great battle in Ohio between weed and abortion. Weed narrowly won, but they both won in landslides in a Trump plus 12 state, relative to the country. Very Republican states. They also like weed and abortion. So amnesty, acid, and abortion is the winning message. George McGovern ended up winning in the end. But you can see there that the abortion thing does something really interesting if you look at the map. It did well in both the suburban areas around Columbus that like the never Trump Republican people have swung the Democrats, and it did well in the industrial areas in the Northeast. So this is the one issue that can unite both the well-educated rich suburbanites that are supporting Democrats now and the working class people, the Obama, Trump, Biden voters who mostly Obama, Trump voters who have swung away from them. So Gen Z with Ohio and abortion, swinging very because Ohio is Gen Z's favorite state, as you can see in the chat. This was a brutal result for them, and it was a long time coming. Yeah, swag like Ohio.
Yeah,
GOP doesn't have swag like Ohio. They have no skibbity. They have no Riz. They have no Giat. Honestly, they're completely Rizless. It's really sad.
Yeah. Yeah, Kai Cenat hates Ohio. All right.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm saying these fucking words that are coming out of my goddamn mouth. Okay.
I'm the Zoomer correspondent. I know all this shit. I've watched every
Yeah.
Skibbity Toilet episode.
No, I have as well. But that's like Gen Alpha at that point. As a
Yeah,
Zoomer,
yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, you're looking at Gen Alpha now in the way that like
Yeah.
I, as a millennial, looked at Zoomers. Now you're looking at Gen Alpha.
Yeah, rip my man, Titan cameraman. Gone too soon.
So, yeah. So this was slated to, from what, as far as I understand it, like the polls were not off at all.
Yeah.
Which
This is the thing that like I have like about like 10 minutes to go through this here. You see the Biden world morons who are like, looks like they shouldn't have attacked Biden so much. Looks like people like Biden the whole time. It looks like the polls are wrong. The polls are right, asshole. The polls got all these races correctly.
Exactly.
The same polls that are saying that everybody fucking hates you got all these races right. So this isn't save you at all. It just means that all the stuff that that you're seeing in the polling about how everybody hates Biden but likes Democrats, that's true.
Yeah.
Drop out, idiot.
Yeah, specifically this one, like the the one where it was like the New York Times did a poll that showed that an unnamed Democrat performs like 8 points better than
18
Brandon.
points. 18 points.
18 points. Like, it's fucking insane. It's so stupid. Alex Perrine once said something that I love and I repeat all the time. That like, and this was all the way back, I believe in like 2016 or maybe in near 2016, 2018, somewhere around those lines. I think it was the midterms elections where he was like, America loves the most progressive policy positions as long as it is a ballot initiative and not associated with a Democrat at all.
That's why I need to get the most generic Democrat ever, which is why Andy Beshear, if you look at him, he's the most generic white boy of all time, and he won in a Trump 30 state by 5 points. You have to get like the swaggiest, most generic ass white boy of all time who's like not 80 years old, and you can just win like in states that voted for Trump by 20 points. Because Beshear there, like he's winning like coal counties, like from like full of like United Mine Workers, coal miners that haven't voted Democrat like since like the 90s. Like these are like crazy ass numbers. He won some counties here that like voted for Trump by 70 points.
Yeah, and also going up against like an insane amount of PAC opposition and like Mitch McConnell specifically.
Yeah.
Daniel Cameron is Mitch McConnell's guy.
Yeah, he's his boy, and he.
I think one important thing to consider with Daniel Cameron is though, and I think that abortion was also a prescient point here.
Oh yeah,
an important point. Daniel
Even
Cameron. What's up?
Even in Kentucky, it's like a winning issue.
Yeah, exactly. Daniel Cameron personally, as Attorney General, said that he would overturn or completely overlook the Democratic ballot initiative that was supposed to protect abortion in the state of Kentucky. I think like people don't forget that. That was definitely a reason as to why people were like, all right, well, fuck you. I'm not voting for you then.
Yeah. Beshear had this one ad that supposedly got played like 1 billion times from my followers who were in Kentucky. They said that they saw it constantly, where he got this rape victim who just straight up said, like in an ad, I was raped when I was 12 years old. I needed an abortion or my life would have been ruined. Daniel Cameron supports me not having that option. Just straight up, like in the ad. Just like no equivocating, no artsy shit. Just like straight up, just laying out the stakes of the issue. And all Republicans did is they said, oh, that's unfair. And they lost.
Yeah, they say that's unfair while simultaneously also like still being backed entirely by like these psychopathic like we must save the white families caucus or like whatever lobbying groups like family protection the family protection moms for family protection
Moms for Liberty. Those guys lost every race too in like fucking Iowa. Like
they fucking
these, like,
lost like teachers races. Like they lost local races where they're supposed to win.
Yeah, up at, like in state like these are states like Kentucky and Ohio and Iowa and like Virginia. Like Virginia's kind of coastal elite, but this is like middle America, and they're saying we don't want your shit. They're speaking on behalf of nobody except for themselves.
Yeah. I don't like part of me is excited at the prospect of Republicans refusing to fucking learn their lesson, which is very odd because like one thing that I used to always say is that unconditionally Republicans love to win, right? Democrats love losing gracefully and not being in a position of power while still maintaining like enough seats in Congress to be like to keep the lobbying going, and to keep the steady flow of funding, while saying, oh well, our hands are tied. Like there's nothing better for the Democratic Party than having like gridlock in the Senate or in the House of Representatives with a blue president.
It's different now. The wine moms kicked put like some fire in their ass. Like the wine moms want to win.
Yeah, and it's more so like Democrats still are in that position, in my opinion, for the the way that like the DNC operates. Like you said, they learn nothing from the midterms.
Yeah,
and they
that's
immediately
why,
ascribe this
Biden-
to Joe Biden, who's insanely unpopular. Like
they won
75%.
in spite of him, not because of him.
Yes.
I read this one book that was this total like kind of like dick sucking job for Biden, the last politician, and it talks about how he views the results. He thinks that the reasons Democrats won that year was not just because of him, but because he specifically refused to politicize abortion. They live in fucking bizarro land. They are like, they have no clue what's going on. If they win, it'll be because they've been dragged over the finish line. They do not deserve to win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that like if there's one thing that has happened that is a benefit to the labor movement, actually, as a matter of fact, it's their ineptitude. It's the ineptitude of the DNC, because like I think the NLRB is just kind of running the show on their own, and the Democrats are like oblivious to whatever the fuck's going on there. Like the DNC is oblivious to that. So that's good. That's like there are major W's coming out of that on that front. And also their inability to understand what the labor movement looks like right now is, I think, part of the reason why Sean Fain was able to secure historic contracts against the big three. Because like, if you remember, even like 4 days out of like this massive strike, Joe Biden was like, oh, I'm not worried. I'm not worried.
He said it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
All of his people running his administration have been around since the Clinton years, and they have this totally outdated mindset that makes them incapable of fighting the political fights of the 2020s.
Yeah.
They are not prepared for this. They're immensely arrogant. They are spiteful and bitter and think that they know better than everybody. And it's they're just completely clueless. So, like, independent of any ideology, that's why I think it's so crucial that there's somehow, some way, is a change in leadership here. Because if you have people like who are running these races, like Bashir also stood up for the Kentucky auto workers. He was like at the picket lines there, if I like remember correctly. Like it's just being on. You don't even have to be like a good person or a leftist or in any way. Just being somebody like Bashir or Whitmer or anybody else who has been on the front lines of politics since 2016, it gives them a totally different perspective where they're far more ruthless, far more able to win elections and utilize power. These people who have been in D.C. for the past 3 decades just do not understand.
Yeah, Big Rich, my Palestinian queen.
Yeah, when she made the statement where she said, "Oh man, it sucks that shit's happening there."
Yeah, no, but that was great. That was actually like the appropriate way to analyze it. And like everybody obviously bullied her, so she had to back away from that position. But like, why the fuck would you not say that when you have a massive like Muslim constituency in your state?
Yeah,
like,
and it did suck that shit happened there. She was right. There should be peace. There's nothing that she said was wrong.
Yeah, she pulled a Selena Gomez, but in a good way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And everybody fucking yelled at her and said that she was like anti-Semitic. So there was that one thing I wanted to mention. What was I gonna say? Hold on. We talked about Big Rich.
There's Virginia. There's Democrats won in Pennsylvania, a big swing state by like 6.2 points. They froze out Young Clan. He's done.
Yeah.
You can't pass
I don't get it.
now.
The CRT was such a prescient message. It's such a good message. CRT and trans, child genital mutilation is happening in America. I thought was going to really push Republicans over the line everywhere, right?
No, they Virginia. They actually elected the first transgender member of their state senate.
Exactly,
Danica Roem, who ran on an economics focused message. Actually, kind of a fun like Goofus and Gallant career arcs with her and Lee Carter, because they were both elected the same year, but they have had very different kind of lifespans in politics.
Yeah. Oh, the thing I was gonna say is like even fake populist dipshits like Josh Hawley understand, and even fucking JD Vance. Like these guys are paid not to read the room, right? And even they recognize the like labor union momentum as they try to like cut messaging that's like kind of pro-labor, but also like pitting them against like I don't know, electric vehicles or whatever. You know what I mean? Like trying to find a way to like
I think they're
squeeze
LARPing.
in.
They're LARPing.
Yeah, no, they're LARPing, but like in my opinion, that LARP indicates that like they still also recognize that this is a constituency that's important, that they like have the capacity to like win over. They're wrong, but
it won't work that way. They don't have the credibility.
Yeah, exactly. Except the Brandon administration is just like oblivious. But luckily, their oblivious nature is also, in my opinion, allowing the NLRB to like just run shit pretty aggressively.
Yeah, it's like in some instances, like in the State Department, where you have these people who are in charge who suck. Biden not really being aware of anything is awful. But like where you have places like the FCC or the SEC or the NLRB, you'll have people there who like the career civil servants or the political appointees who are a lot like more left wing on the issues. They're kind of given a free hand, basically.
Yeah, exactly. The other side of this is that, I mean, if we talk about like Biden's bona fides, if we talk about like what is happening under the Brandon administration, like the economy, not great. Inflation seemingly being tempered, but it doesn't matter. Most Americans don't recognize that like it's not about
had
like
2 years of negative wage growth under Biden. You're not going to make up that money. People are going to be worse off than they were when he got elected. It's over. You can't run on the economy. That's done. You need to run on the issues that actually work for you instead of raising the importance of the stuff people hate you on. And he's done the exact opposite of that.
Yes.
It's like asinine. They're trying to redo the 1996 election in a political and media environment that is decades removed from that.
Yeah, it is mind-boggling to push for that, especially because like it's in a weird way, it's like a lighter version of what Bernie Sanders would have ran on, or probably what Bernie Sanders would have been able to get away with if he was like to govern. If he were to ever, be able to govern, and yet it's possibly the worst time to push for that.
And the worst messengers, because nobody trusts them. They trust Bernie. They might give Bernie the benefit of the doubt. But you have these people who have been around for decades and were doing deregulation their entire careers up until this moment. It looks cynical and fake.
Yeah. So it's odd. It's odd to run on that when you have the gift wrap of abortion. But yeah, as far as like the Republican Party's implosion goes, it's a race to the bottom on both sides. Like you have a historically unpopular president who is unpopular in ways that are not manageable. Like there's no way to combat the narrative that like you're
He's
fucking
too
old.
He presided over a bad. He can't get younger. He can't turn back time and make people have more money.
Yeah.
He can't like not look lost and out of it. He can't like suddenly be able to give a good speech. It's like Felix said, it's LBJ in 1968, but senile. But Republicans are insistent on not taking advantage of it.
But they can't, because in a way, Republicans can't take advantage of it either, because like the problem within the Republican Party is oftentimes likened to Trump. And I think that's like a silly liberal understanding of the issue. They are like the 35-year project of the Federalist Society far predates Donald Trump. The only difference is under Trump. Under Trump, the dog caught the car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like,
and it was the worst time because they didn't have a messenger who could spin it in any way. It was bad shit compounded on top of bad shit. And I would argue actually that like them kind of colonizing the Trump administration with this kind of very unpopular Mike Pence social conservatism ruined a lot of the appeal he might have had in 2016 when he was a lot more moderate. He wasn't a huge culture war crusader, but now they have a bad message on the worst possible messenger. If they just got him like being some kind of like scummy New York playboy again, that might actually be a bit more effective.
Yeah. He's now also seen as like, I mean, he tries to portray himself as like an outsider again, but he was the fucking president. So like, in a weird way, he wants to maintain the W's that he got, like the Supreme Court justices, but that's completely associated with the abortion debacle for them, suffering from their own success in many ways. There's no way to. Like, if I'm a Republican, I'm literally never talking about abortion. I'm only saying like
Yeah,
I mean, I guess
they
like
need to give up. They need to just say there is literally no path for them other than saying that we're going to bring back Roe. That is the only politically tenable position. But
yeah,
they can't say that. They just have to concede because
because if
this
they say
issue
that,
is
then they
killing
lose the
them.
evangelicals.
It won't even. They'll just. It just goes against their reason to exist.
Yeah.
And like it's just not like it's the kind of like busing with Democrats in the 1970s. They just kind of slowly had to concede on it as it made them just not competitive nationally.
Yeah. It's a tricky situation. I don't see any way out of it. Like that's what I'm trying to say. Like I think it's like a spiritual rift within the Republican Party that is born directly out of how successful they are, because wedge issues are great if you don't actually succeed in implementing them, because when you implement them, I always go back to this one poll. I forget where it was, but that Republicans don't believe the cruelty of the policies that they're pushing for.
When you try to run on what Republican policies are, people just say you're lying. Like you
Yeah,
can quote their platform, they're like, "Nah, nobody would do this. You're making shit up. We hate you."
Exactly. Like they like it on as a message. They like it like they like the broader framing of it, owning the libs or whatever, but they don't actually like it when it's when it's actually implemented, like the criminalization of abortion. And there's no way that you can not own that anymore. Like everybody fucking knows that is the Republicans' fault. It's the Republicans' failure, and that's something they have to fucking sit with and live with. And even immigration in Florida, like Ron DeSantis pushing so aggressively against immigration and like almost crippling the Florida economy, or even Ron DeSantis going so far out of his way to implement culture war policies that he ends up pissing off the number one reason for the state of Florida to even exist or have a fucking viable economy, and actually trying to use government powers against the corporation, which is like inherently the most anti-Republican thing you could do.
Yeah. I would this is I have a recording I have to get to, so this is the last thing I'll say. These are the problems Republicans face, these very deep structural fundamental problems. The basics of their platform are completely unpopular. Their leader is a lunatic who's probably gonna go to jail. They just like are in a terrible situation. There's no like structurally. The problem for Democrats is one guy who's older than God and everybody hates, who can leave at any time, and they have a huge bench of people to replace them with.
Yeah, that's the other side. Yes, we have a bench like of talent. There's actually people that could fill that role.
Yeah, and it's easier. Like it's completely easy. It's completely simple. It's just switching one guy out for the other, and then you have basically no problems. And the Republicans are stuck with all their shit. But they're insistent on making this go down to the wire for the third time in a row because I don't know, they think Joe Biden's been the greatest president ever. Anyways, so I've read a lot about that. I have all of the successors listed on a tier list on my website, editormentum.news. I'll see what happens at the debates. It was good being on.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, no problem. It's great.
All right. That was Edinger Mentum, ladies and gentlemen. He has a newsletter at Edinger Mentum, if you know how to fucking spell it, .news. Okay. His last article is the president who stood up to Israel and won. He is the Gen Z correspondent as well. I am going to now get back to talking about Rashida Tlaib and what ended up happening to her. This is the Fox News coverage of it. But of course, one thing that you should also remember is that at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. And I'm going to run that right now as well. Yes, I will cover the Rick Santorum take. Do not worry. Also, don't Google what Rick Santorum is. We are going to talk about that as well.
The Palestinian and Israeli children sound no different to me. Why? What I don't understand is why the cries of Palestinians sound different to you all.
So that from Tuesday, just yesterday, Rashida Tlaib, her parents were born in the West Bank. She was born in Detroit, Michigan, and the House has now voted overwhelmingly to censure the only Palestinian-American congresswoman over her anti-Israeli comments. Our next guest, a Democrat who joined Republicans in a rare rebuke. Brad Schneider with me now. And, sir, good morning to you. So all Republicans, 22 Democrats, go ahead and explain to us. You're Jewish, right? And you voted to censure her. Go ahead, sir.
So, we hear the voices of people in Gaza and Israel, the civilians who are always caught in the middle of a war. And we're doing everything we can. I spent almost an hour on the phone with the Egyptian ambassador saying we need to get safe zones and aid into southern Gaza to take care of the civilians who are caught in the middle. But here's the thing. Hamas started a war on October 7th with an invasion, murdering, slaughtering, raping, torturing more than 1,400 Israelis, taking more than 240 people captive and holding them hostage inside Gaza. As long as Hamas controls Gaza, there will not be peace for Palestinians or Israelis. And that's why Israel is taking the actions it is to defend itself, to secure its borders, protect its citizens, and rescue its hostages. When Representative Tlaib uses language like from the river to the sea, that is not coded language. It was the chant, the rallying cry of the PLO in 1964.
Freedom of Speech Party? Yeah. The rallying cry, the PLO, dude. Yeah. Exactly. Edinger Mentum is my website. Zoomers of the World Unite. No, we already posted it. Don't worry. Fuck, dude. I had to pee so bad. Yeah. Free Speech Party, by the way, of course. Obviously, there's no such thing as free speech in America. Remember, it's fucking bullshit. It just means like hate speech, only permissible. Hate speech is the type of speech that's permissible if you actually go against the interest of the American State Department in any meaningful capacity. They will fucking bully you. They will tell you that you are immoral, bad, wrong, blah, blah, blah.
Israel took control of the West Bank and Gaza. It was the rallying cry, and still is today, of Hamas. It's calling for the destruction of the state of Israel and the murder of Jews. And so when a colleague, we're elected representatives, we have an expectation to measure our words, to be considerate, and to think about what we say, and when we make mistakes, to stand up and correct them. And when a colleague refuses to do that and is throwing gasoline on a fire, that needs to be countered and addressed, and the record needs to be corrected. And this was the forum to do so.
I understand the point you're making there. That river to the sea comment that she made, she tried to clarify. You're talking about the Jordan River to the Eastern Mediterranean Sea, right, which would be all of Israel. She said, from the river to the sea is an
terrifying if Palestinians were free in that entire area that Israel happens to be occupying and oppressing. Terrifying prospect, folks. I mean, imagine if Palestinians had democracy and rights. What would that mean? What would that mean for our demographic ethno-state project? What would that mean demographically? What would that mean? I mean, that would be terrifying, right? I mean, Palestinians are not real humans. They're subhuman. They're dogs. They're terrorists. And if they're terrorists, what would they do? They would probably democratically vote for terrorism, right? They would vote to democratically expel all Jews. That's what they would do. We can't have equality under the law. That's why we just have to keep pushing the apartheid. We have to do a preemptive genocide, hopefully to stop a possible hypothetical genocide that is fucking not ever going to happen, of course. That's the only way to stop it. It's a security concern. Sorry.
Aspirational call for freedom, human rights, and peaceful coexistence, not death, destruction, or hate. My work in advocacy is always centered in justice and dignity for all people, no matter faith or ethnicity. Clearly, based on your vote, you don't believe her.
Well, I'm not going to question her intention or desire for peace, but that statement, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, is a rallying cry. It is an aspirational rallying cry, an aspiration for the destruction of the state of Israel. It has been that way for more than 50
Yeah, the destruction of the state of Israel. The destruction of the state of Israel, which is a fucking apartheid state, man. Even from that perspective, like, even if what he was saying is true, even then, it's like not a morally impermissible thing to say. Yes, the destruction of the state of Israel as an apartheid regime, okay, is not inherently anti-Semitic. It just means a destruction of the apartheid, okay? This does not mean you have to like expel forcibly every Jewish person that lives in Israel. It's ridiculous.
50 years. And that's why to use it cavalierly, to put it on a video, to put it out in the world, to put it on social media where she gets millions of people to see her interpretation, she doesn't interpret it for Hamas. Hamas says it very clearly. They want to destroy Israel, and their actions back up their words. We saw it on October 7th, and Hamas leaders have said what they did on October 7th, they would do over and over again. That's why it's so important that Israel defeat Hamas, eliminate their ability to control Gaza. And then after that, let's give the Palestinians in Gaza the chance to build their own communities, to build a area that is going to be free of terrorism, free of the control of Hamas, but building schools.
Yeah, I love the beautiful bombing campaign, like the positive ways in which this bombing campaign will certainly eviscerate Hamas leadership and Hamas control. Yeah, he literally just called Rashida a terrorist. He implied it. Oh, that's so nice. It's so nice. I love when like unconditional supporters of Israel will say the most idiotic shit, like without any like secondary considerations, right? Like, well, they'll be like, why won't Hamas build bomb shelters? I don't know. Maybe because a fucking Mark 84 rocket that will absolutely laser a fucking bomb shelter. They blow up schools. Why the fuck wouldn't they blow up a bomb shelter? What are you, fucking stupid? They blow up schools and ambulances and fucking hospitals and shit. Why wouldn't they fucking blow up a bomb shelter? They'd be like, Hamas is there, sheltering from our bombs. They're not allowed to have concrete. They're not allowed to have cement. Fuck. But people just say it, and it just sticks there. It just like stays there for some reason, and no one ever goes, man, that seems kind of dumb.
Hospitals industry lifting up the lives.
Listen,
of
you're right about
people.
that. You know, Hamas had its chance, right? I mean, 17 years they ruled the Strip. Here are two Democrats who disagree with you. Some strong.
Yeah, Hamas has tunnels to hide safely, but they prefer to hide among civilians. I know you're, like, I can't tell if you're, like, saying this as a joke because, like, it's such a fucking idiotic position, and yet it's literally channeled in every communication strategy that the IDF's foreign ministry has applied. Like, every single time.
Strongly, watch.
I rise in opposition to this censure resolution that is blatantly Islamophobic.
No, that person is joking. It just, the problem is, what is actually a fucking joke is unironically what IDF is using as a talking point.
Anti-democratic and an utter waste of time. This resolution is as dishonest as it is unproductive.
The resolution offered against the gentlewoman from Michigan is all about censoring her for her political speech. And literally nothing else.
Sir, final question. I've got about 30 seconds. This issue is dividing your party. Can you resolve
No, I
this?
think we can certainly resolve this. The issue is we all stand, I think everyone in Congress believes in free speech. But free speech as a representative, as an elected official, carries responsibility, and it can't go without refutation. And from the river to the sea is a call for genocide and the murder of Jews. As simple as that.
Here are some possible red lines coming out of Blinken for the first fucking time, even though on October 8th, Blinken called for a ceasefire and then deleted it because he's a bitch, because he's fucking bitch made. Anyway, Karine Jean-Pierre refuses to say whether Biden supports the censure of Rashida Tlaib. I talked about this already. Cowardly pieces of shit in the American government. This is America's lack of interest in recognizing the dignity and humanity of the Palestinian people, of Arabs across the board, of not only Arabs but just like the entire Muslim the entire Muslim population of the planet. Even if that's not the case, that is how people see it. Okay? That is how people see it. That's how the Muslim world sees it. This is legitimately an issue. Legitimately an issue even for people who want to maintain American hegemonic power. But for some weird reason, we are not seeing it from that perspective. We're so blinded. And I believe, I mean, this is, again, Felix Biederman, his opinion on the matter. I don't know if this is true or not. I can't see what Brandon's brain looks like probably a lot of holes in it. But like he thinks, I talked to him a lot about this stuff. He thinks that Joe Brandon is operating with old man brain. He thinks like, you know, Israel still has this like well-oiled machine going up against like dudes with no way of retaliating. Like they are the well-oiled military superpower going up against people who have, you know, who just like have old ass weapons and like try to shoot in their direction and get fucking owned and obliterated like how it used to be. It's not 1967. It's not even the fucking 80s anymore, right? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it is very, yeah, exactly like it's in Vietnam. Exactly like it is in Vietnam. And this has severe repercussions on the Israeli economy. Like Israel is ironically doing a BDS to itself because of how fucking bloodthirsty it has been in the treatment of Palestinians across the board in Gaza. Okay? The Israeli economy cannot withstand 300,000 reservists constantly engaging in fucking bombing campaigns with like, you know, there's every day we hear about another fucking Merkava getting melted. Talking about like redeploying older tanks that were slated to be destroyed because of the amount of fucking tanks that they're damaging. Okay, you cannot stop the IDF from seeing the results when one, they're living through it, they're experiencing it on the fucking ground, and two, when you know they're getting blown up. Like you could take their fucking phones away, but that doesn't mean shit. You know what I mean? Oh, for morale reasons, like we don't want the IDF to know what's going on and how the world is like reacting to this stuff. But like, okay, sure. But like they still experience it. Anyway.
But remember, Israel is defending itself from terrorists who committed a horrific act. That's what we saw on October 7th, as you all know, and who have taken about 240 people hostage, including American citizens. So not going to speak to the actions that Congress took, but certainly as it relates to that term, we've been very clear. We strongly disagree.
Has anyone from the White House reached out to
The other part of this problem, the other part of this fucking problem, for the record, is racism. It's part arrogance and part racism, okay? It's part racism and part arrogance. The notion that you think you can maintain an apartheid without any severe repercussions, especially as it pertains to security for Israeli civilians, is an arrogant position, but it's only one that you can believe if you truly do believe the racist fucking propaganda that you're pumping in order to justify the existence of the apartheid structure. The idea that like, no, these Arabs don't know how to fucking fight. They're barbaric. They're in it for the slaughter. They're in it for like the death and destruction of all Jews. And like, but they can't really do anything because they don't know how to build anything. Not because like we keep blowing their shit up, but because like they just simply aren't capable to do so. It's not like the poverty and the destitution that we have subjected them to, but instead like they're literally fucking inferior. Okay? Anyway, I can't stand it when they say Israel's defending itself. It's retaliation at best. They never explain how bombing kids is defensive because, as we've seen in the Hasbara Handbook, which we will be looking at in a little bit, once again, you can't talk about the Palestinians as though they're human beings because then people are going to start questioning it. They're going to be like, well, what the fuck do you mean? Human beings? Holy shit. Hold up. That's weird. Why are we killing human beings and their children? That's part of the reason why there is a deliberate reason. That's part of the reason why they like those who are regularly defending Israel unconditionally and forever will often use this two different forms of propaganda. One, the destructive, racist, in my opinion, illegal, should be illegal, morally repugnant like Pallywood conspiracy. But then the other thing that they usually do is this. They always talk about the children with the guns. They're like, oh, like, if you're wondering why so many ultra-Zionist accounts show Palestinian kids with guns at a school play, it's projection to claim that Palestinian children are taught to hate Israel at school. It's also a racist Hasbara tactic to make the child death toll seem morally permissible. Look, they're all like this. They teach them, they indoctrinate their children. He says Palestinian children stage the murder of Israelis. Not all Palestinians. How do you live with such a terrorist neighbor next door that indoctrinates / encourages children to do this? Why are the parents allowing this? That is, according to the Hasbara campus, Hasbara handbook promoting Israel on campus, one of the practical pointers that they mention: hold a vigil for the victims of terror, fundraise for the victims of terror, run a solidarity trip to Israel, screen a video, or run a poster campaign featuring Palestinian children with guns. Now, of course, the irony is that, like, Israel has plenty of children who openly talk about how they want to join the IDF from a very early age, but that's different. That's a state. That's like totally different. There's also plenty of children, settler children, who like have guns or pose with guns. You know what I mean? Like for every number of like incitement of hatred against the Israelis is real. It's like happening on television. It's happening in their fucking. It's happening from early on. Okay, look at this. Like, they're doing this in the UNRWA schools. The UNRWA schools. Here, let me show you this like a completely mistranslated video that's like out of context as I'm like trying to justify killing fucking children. Okay, it is all the fucking time. Yeah, mother of Palestinian terrorist Ibrahim al-Nabulsi. Ibrahim is a role model for Palestinian children, teaching them to love jihad. Look, 2022 editor's picks, clips from the Memory TV project. And then, of course, there is this peer projection. Obviously, there's plenty of fucking children on the Israeli side that also are engaging in this exact same thing, except one side is the state power maintaining an apartheid state. The other side learns to hate Israel when Israel blows up their fucking schools. It's ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. And the only fucking reason why these people are bringing this shit up is specifically because, like I said, they want to make it seem morally permissible to kill children. These are terrorist babies. These are terrorists in the fucking making. It's the exact same reactionary idea that claims CRT or any kind of real accurate assessment of history teaches black people that America is racist at school, and that somehow that's how black people become anti-white, and not by experiencing white supremacy firsthand by a militarized police or in general through the abject poverty conditions that they're subjected to. That's not the reason why black people develop a perspective against white supremacy, not white people, right? Palestinians learn that Israel is threatening their existence at school, not by the things that they're programming in their schools, but by Israel blowing up the school. That's how they fucking learn, okay? They're doling out talking points to people who already made their minds made up. These arguments aren't swaying anyone. It's not a complicated issue to understand. Yeah, the problem is there is a lot of people who want to muddy the waters and make this issue that is uncomplicated into a complicated one. And obviously, if you have an overwhelming amount of support in mainstream media, and that like even Congress engages in the acts of like censuring the only Palestinian congresswoman at a time when like her family members are under threat. Remember, Rashida Tlaib wanted to go to West Bank to see her family. Benjamin Netanyahu personally barred her from entering Palestinian land. Okay? That's the level of control that Israel has. That's a level of arrogance that Israel shows on a regular basis. So, like, the idea that this is somehow morally equivalent is psychotic. Okay? It is completely and utterly ridiculous, devoid of the truth, and just stupid. What do you say to people saying outrage at Israel, not other issues, equals anti-Semitism? Yeah, what do I say to those people? Those people are telling on themselves. There is no comparison. There is literally no comparison to a 75-year apartheid regime and occupation without Western support, but specifically American support. It would not exist in the way that it does. There's no way. Okay? And you can't do that to someone like myself because I've spoken about all of these other issues as well. Plenty of leftists speak about all of these other issues as well, right? Is incrementum coming on? We already finished that part. Anyway, it doesn't look like the IDF is going to be able to eradicate Hamas and they won't go back to the same situation before October 7th. What do you think is going to happen then? I'll get to that in a second. What do I say to inform people when they say Hamas is using schools and hospitals as meat shields? They're psychotic. Ask them if it would be okay to blow up a fucking school in a hostage situation if a school shooter was to go into a school and hold people hostage. Is it okay to blow up the entire school? And is it okay to blow up the entire city block, as a matter of fact? Absolutely zero people will say yes to that. Why? Because they intrinsically understand that those children at that school are innocent, but they do not make the same exact assertion for Palestinian children. They think Palestinian children are just terrorists in the making. That they're subhuman. They're not real human beings. That's why it is fucking ridiculous. The idea that they're human shields is such a fucking insane thing, and it would never work. It would never work if you saw Palestinians as human beings. It just wouldn't. But because they are, because most people don't see Palestinians as human beings or Arabs as human beings, or because Islamophobia is so important to defend America's war on terror that was an abject failure, right? That destabilized the entire fucking region. Tens of millions of people lost their homes. Millions of people lost their lives. But in order to justify that $8 trillion mistake, right? In order to justify that $8 trillion mistake, you had to create this notion that all Arabs want death to America. And this benefits Israel greatly because that's who their enemies are too. My Jewish buddy went to Berkeley and had the Palestinian roommate who thought my buddy was threatening him the first time he saw him in his yarmulke. I felt like that was a powerful example of who the oppressor is. Wait, what? Like the Palestinian kid was afraid that he was going to threaten him or something? You can only be okay with shooting the human shields if you think the shields are actually human. Yes. Anyway, I will never forgive you, Turks, for losing World War. Fire tweet for real. How the fuck can he bar a congressperson? What the fuck is on this uppity client state? They keep forgetting who's in charge. They do, and that's not a bad thing. Says, I will never forgive you, Turks, for losing World War. Are you a Nazi? Because, I think you need to figure out what your history... I think you need a history lesson because... One, the Ottoman Empire didn't lose its own battles during World War I, and that was more so a war that Germany lost. And in World War II, the Turks did not touch the Germans with a 10-foot pole. Anyway, hey, Oz, after Hamas attack, I educated myself more on Israel. I have to think about the genocide all the time. I can't stop feeling guilt or just ignoring a fucking apartheid state before this. I mean... Listen, dude, there's a reason. There's a reason why a lot of people... I was listening to Sam Cedar earlier, and he talked about this too. He's like, listen, I've been tracking Israel for 45 years, and there was a point in time when I didn't personally care that much about it, because why the fuck would I? Because I was never, informed about it. What? Did you reclaim the tunnel narratives about how they were used for transferring women's underwear, etc.? Wait, what? I wonder if Hasanabi gets tired of reiterating what racism is multiple times a day. She would win a Nobel Creative Prize for Delivery. Europe killed Jews 3 generations ago. How ironic their grandchildren, great-grandchildren want their kids to pay for Europe's atrocious crimes. Racism gets transferred clearly. What are you saying? Tunnels are transferring women's underwear? What the fuck? Anyway. Mark Lamont Hill is a really good take on the Republicans. Centering Rashida Tlaib and the Democrats that voted for it with alongside the Republicans? Yeah, okay. What do you say to people who say Hiroshima was a necessary evil, so is this? Yeah, they're wrong. Hiroshima was literally, objectively not a necessary evil. Plenty has been written on this. I love when people say that because it's like, hey, what do you say to the people that that didn't understand the lessons that they should have understood at the end of World War II and how they continue to fucking push for death and destruction for no particular reason other than their own psychotic racist fantasies?
Congresswoman, and given that she used a phrase that you just described as divisive and potentially anti-Semitic, does the White House plan to have any engagement with her? The president's head of the Democratic Party. Is there a place in the Democratic Party for somebody who uses phrases like that?
So we've been very clear. We just said we think that we strongly disagree in using that phrase. I mean, that is coming from here, from the White House, in a very public way. It's been said by many people at the White House. So we've been very, very clear about that. I don't have any conversations to read out to you with the Congresswoman. I just don't have anything from here at this time to read out. But look, we've been very clear, very, very clear about.
Yeah, I mean, no red lines. What more do you want, man? What do you want? You want her to fucking, you want the Brandon White House to just like kill Rashida Tlaib or something? Like how can we make our commitment clear, you know? How can we make our commitment more clear? Just like deport Rashida Tlaib and then maybe we'll believe you. Blinken has officially laid out red lines. No forcible displacement of Palestinians from Gaza, except it's already happening. Not now, not after the war. No use of Gaza as a platform for terrorism. No reoccupation of Gaza. No attempt to blockade or besiege Gaza. Literally happening, and no reduction in the territory. Netanyahu must be freaking it in the cabinet meetings for him to say this, lol, is what Edinger Mentum said. Some of Blinken's warnings were also a public pushback against private ideas raised by Israelis, U.S. officials said, including that Israeli security could be ensured by a buffer zone between Gaza and Israel, potentially sliced out of Gaza's territory. Gaza must not be reoccupied and should be run by Palestinians, says Blinken. I'm glad that we finally got to some red lines here after like blood and soil propaganda, endless blood and soil propaganda from the Israeli Knesset. Breaking, U.S. officials confirmed to Voice of America that Yemen Houthis shot down a U.S. MQ-9 drone in the Red Sea. That's crazy. Dude, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Is there a bigger like out of nowhere underdog that just came out fucking swinging? It's insane, dude. Listen. That is how much is that? How much is a fucking US MQ-9 drone? Hold on. Let's look that up. $32 million. Oh my God. Oh my God. $32 million. Holy shit, dude. These guys were literally being genocided like a month ago. How? How is that possible? Oh my God. Let me tell you something, okay? I am not, I'm Muslim, not exactly a big religious person, okay? Culturally, right? This is what I grew up in a Sunni Muslim country. But goddamn, do these motherfucking Shias know what the fuck they're doing? How is that even possible? How? How is this even possible? I do not understand. They just increased their GDP. Let's fucking go. Dude, they went from living under a ruthless blockade. Living under a ruthless blockade. I know it's Iran and Iranian money and Iranian weapons, but you have to understand. Going from a fucking going from withstanding a genocide to like making music videos about how you're, going to step all over Israel. It's so crazy, dude. How did they get those Iranian weapons? What do you mean, how did they get those Iranian weapons? Like, they're snuck into the country. What are you talking about? That's the difference between, like, an actual fucking nation state versus, like, Gaza. Saudi Arabia tried to Gaza the entirety of the country, and it didn't work out. Hold on. I wanna show the last video. The Iranian IRGC Quds Force came and helped convert their SAMs with new tech and shipped new air defense missiles on fishing vessels to them. Thank you, Elent News. Yes. Bro, I don't know what to say. I mean, listen. These guys they're doing the most. They're doing the
Here's a map.
They're doing the absolute most. Here, this is massacres in Yemen you've never heard about. I also I don't know if there's blood on this.
Showing Saudi airstrikes in Yemen using U.S. bombs. Mass shootings, bombings of civilians in Ukraine. These events get plenty of news coverage, but a long string of mass killings going on for years has been absent from most major news. Here's just 5 massacres in Yemen that you've probably never heard about. October 2016, the Saudi-led coalition bombs a funeral held in the capital city of Sana'a, hitting the crowd with several airstrikes. 140 people are killed. August 2019, a Saudi airstrike blasts a prison in Damar province, with the Red Cross reporting more than 100 deaths. October 2015, an atrocity on Uqban Island has been very deeply buried and has had zero coverage from any major news. It is believed that over 115 fishermen were killed by helicopter gunships. Pictures that are truly gut-wrenching and unable to be shown show mutilated bodies washed up on the shores of the island. September 2015, a wedding in Wahjat Taiz province was the target of an airstrike by coalition forces. Medics put the death toll at 135. March 2016, 2 coalition airstrikes incinerate a market in the town of...
By the way, when they say coalition airstrikes, like, those are American weapons. I make no mistake. These are American weapons that we sold to Saudi Arabia, that Saudi Arabia is using on like civilians in Yemen.
Staba, in Hajjah province, 119 civilians are killed. In November of last year, the...
Wrong comparison. I'm from Yemen. I don't think the Saudi were as ruthless as Israel to Gaza. I mean, I think that's a pretty decent comparison. The joke is, if the joke in the Middle East is like, if you wanted to truly help the Palestinians, you should tell everyone in the region that Israel is converted to Shia Islam. Like, it's more. I mean, we're doing genocide. It also wasn't on civilians. It was Houthis. Oh shit, dude. Fuck. I didn't realize. I forgot. Just like it wasn't civilians, it's Hamas. It's not civilians, it's Houthis. Like, remember when in the rubble of a school bus that was blown up in Yemen, we found that it was an American munitions were used in blowing up an entire fucking school bus. You know, children's melted bodies stuck to the side of a fucking school bus. And of course, it was also declared a genocide. And those guys were all actually deserving, you know? They were deserving. They were deserving of it. I grew up in Sana'a. The worst I remember is when they hit a school that changed a lot of Yemeni kids. Yeah.
The Biden administration approved a $650 million sale in arms to Saudi Arabia, enriching contractors who have made billions off of these atrocities.
Damn, this guy's good.